Hello everyone, this is Sergey Sputnikov with another episode of Ushanka Show. I want to apologize, but I need to make another episode on the topic of Vladimir Putin interview with Tucker Carlson. If you watch my Ushanka Show live, when I went through that interview and compared my notes, I mentioned one fact about the name Carlson. So this is the Carlson that everyone knew in the Soviet Union and probably modern day Russia. There was a famous cartoon based on a Swedish writer. It's adventures of this chubby, middle-aged guy who had a propeller on his back, and he visited a kid who is bored to death, and together they get in a lot of trouble. And every time something bad happens, Carlson would state, "Спокойствие, только спокойствие, дело житейское." So it's like, calm down, everything just fine. This Carlson cartoon was very popular in the Soviet Union, and I think it's really good, and if you're interested to watch it, I'll post the link below in the comment section. But in this video, I would like to focus on something else that Vladimir Putin said in his interview, something that bothered me for several days. So Putin just said that back in 2023, he said last year, Russia became a number 5 economy in the world by GDP and number 1 in Europe, ahead of Germany. I found this statement quite bizarre because since 2014, when Russia got hit with sanctions after occupying Crimea, and those sanctions was getting worse and worse, to state that last year somehow Russia became the 5th economy, so economy was improving, it's really hard to believe. So I started researching, this is what I found, the top 5 economies by GDP in 2023, USA number 1, 26.8 trillion, China number 2, Japan number 3, Germany number 4, India number 5. Russia is not in the list for 2023 in top 5 economies. But of course, devil is in details, and I missed originally how Putin mentioned purchasing power parity right in the beginning of his spiel. So economy of Russia in 2023 was 11th largest economy by nominal GDP, by actual numbers. 6th largest by purchasing power parity, that PPP, according to International Monetary Fund, and the 5th largest according to World Bank. So we have different numbers, and it's largely affected by using PPP thing. In my understanding, I'm not an economist, the PPP, it's like if you go to a gym and you see a huge guy benching, bench pressing 300 pounds, and there's another small tiny guy barely could bench 50 pounds, but you need to apply a special formula based on the weight of each person, and then of course 50 pounds actually worth 200 pounds because guy is small. So similarly, if the goods are cheaper to produce in other country, you need to adjust the cost of goods and then make the real GDP based on the cost of goods in each country, similar goods. So that's how Russia skyrockets from number 11 to number 6 according to IMF, or number 5 according to the World Bank. While doing my research, I also stumbled upon this message. Warning, don't trust official GDP data. Depending on data selection, up to 80% of GDP data may be unusable for investment purposes. So I dug a little bit deeper, and surprise, surprise, Russia's data quality rating is C-. Official GDP data for Russia has been awarded a quality rating of C-. Use with caution. But let's go to the Putin statement about Russia being the 5th economy in the world by GDP after applying purchasing power parity. Well, first of all, I want to retract my statement about amazing translation. Obviously, it was a prepared text and the guy was reading it, because there is no way he would translate purchasing power parity from Russian to English without hesitation, without even a second of delay. So it was prepared text and he was just reading it. But do you know that Vladimir Putin was obsessed with making Russia great again? I'm just kidding. Was making Russia the 5th economy of the world for a long time. Since 2007 to be exact. So here's Putin's first recorded promise to make Russia the 5th economy in the world, and it happened in November of 2007. And here's Putin in February of 2008 claiming that Russia became number 7 world economy ahead of France and Italy. And as you see, year after year, over and over again, Putin was promising he's gonna make Russia economy number 5 in the world. So I think it will be fair to say that Putin's interview with Carlson was also addressed to the Russians, because no one in the West would understand this statement about fifth economy in the world. And of course, Tucker never bothered to do homework, to be prepared to discuss how it was calculated and all that stuff. He just let it slide. But it's an extremely important statement for Putin. And of course, everyone in the West just missed it. Remember, next month, in March of 2024, Russia will have another presidential election, and they're going to elect Vladimir Putin for another 6 years.
Чего не смеетесь-то? Не смешно? Не поняли, да? Это Россия.
Okay, and now let's talk about Carlson. No, not that Carlson. This Carlson. If you watched my previous video on the topic of interview between Putin and Carlson, I was not impressed with Carlson's skills as a journalist, but I didn't want to call him a useful idiot like some people did. But now, after his statements that it takes skills to run Russia for 24 years, yeah, it takes skills to rig election after election after election and change constitution so you can stay in power, I agree there. And then he went complete gaga over a beautiful Moscow and Moscow subways. So now I have to admit, yes, he is a useful idiot. So let me explain. This is a beautiful map that shows US cities with the highest GDP. And let's look at the capital of the United States. It's $608 billion. This is for 2021. So its capital of America doesn't have the highest GDP and the highest budget than other cities. New York City is $2 trillion. And looking at this 2023 global GDP diagram, Russia is nominal here, 2.1 trillion. So New York City on its own has as large GDP as the entire Russia, the largest country in the world, and the fifth economy by PPP GDP, according to Putin. So let's take a look at this map again. And I couldn't find budget of each city, but I assume GDP and budget kind of relates. So New York City, number one, $2 trillion. They probably have budget to match. Number two will be, looks like Los Angeles, 1.1 trillion. Then we have Chicago, looks like number three, 765 billion. Then we have Dallas, Houston, Washington for 608. San Francisco is actually beats Washington at 669 billion. So you see there's quite a few heavyweights cities in the United States that do a lot of business and have large budgets. And here, my friends, is the budgets of the 10 largest cities in Mother Russia. Big giant red ball is Moscow. It's in billions of rubles. So guess what? Moscow's budget is 3.2 times larger than the other 9 largest city in Russia. 3 times bigger. So Moscow, like a black hole, and of course it's the capital of Russia, it's where all the government is located. It sucks the juice out of the whole country and keeps the most of it. Here's another example for you. So this is where the headquarters of Fortune 500 companies located in the United States. So 500 companies, New York, first place, about 50 companies. So 10% of top 500 Fortune companies are located in New York, 10%. Chicago, slightly less than Houston, Dallas. Well, you got the idea. So it's definitely spread all over the place. This is slightly outdated information, but I don't think it changed much. So out of 500 largest Russian corporations, right in Moscow is 296. So more than 50% of all largest corporations are located in Moscow. So also found this one. So this is newer, but it's for top 100 corporations. So 57 in Moscow, 13 in St. Petersburg, and the rest is 20. So 63% of top 100 Russian companies located in Moscow. And this is the biggest difference between the capital of Russia and the capital of the United States. The capital of Russia, Moscow, is everything. Like in America, if you want to be a movie star, you go to Hollywood. In Russia, you go to Moscow. In America, if you want to be in banking, you probably go to New York City. In Russia, you go to Moscow. If you live in some middle of nowhere area and you're gay and you're not comfortable with traditional people around you, conservatives, you go to California, go to San Francisco. In Russia, you go to Moscow. So pretty much anything you want to do different or you want to achieve something in any areas, you have to go to Moscow if you live in Russia. I remember reading somewhere, but I couldn't verify that 80% of all the money are located in Moscow. I don't think it's really a healthy situation for the country when all the resources, everything concentrated in one single place. So of course, Moscow looked amazing with all the new buildings, while subways, we got it still from Stalin era, all those stupid fancy subways that foreigners think they're so amazing, but it's such a huge waste of money, putting granite and marble in a subway. I used to love it too, and I remember coming to America for the very first time. I was not impressed with New York City subway system, but as I my eyes open up, I realize that, it's just practicality. They don't want to waste too much money. Well, they couldn't really dig deep in New York City anyways. So there's the reason for the season. There's the reason why subway is built cheaply in America and why millions were spent in Russia. And while Tucker Carlson is smitten with the glory of Moscow and its subways, he probably has no idea that 22.6% of Russians still don't have running water. They still have to use outhouses. And you know how many people, 22.6%? 32 million of Russians still have to use outhouses. They don't have in their homes running water and sewer system. All Carlson had to do, if he would be a real journalist, is ask to go for a ride. Just hop in a car, drive out of Moscow and cruise around, see the villages, and he will probably change his mind about Russia. Anyway, I hope it's the last video about Tucker Carlson and Putin. I hope you guys enjoyed the story, and we'll talk to you soon. До свидания. Goodbye.